Hey, welcome to Let's Unravel, and I'm your friend Christina. Thanks for stopping by. Whether you're a new listener or a friend of the show, I just wanted to say welcome. So today we have a very special guest with us here. This person, they need no introduction, but I'm happy to brag about them. So this person is the most determined person I know, the life of every party, and she just so happens to be my sister, but dare I say my best friend. Please welcome Ashley Voorhees to Let's Unravel.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, even though I'm your second guest. Just kidding. I'm a sister. I have to tease her. I'm honored to be here. Thank you for having me. And I look forward to what we're going to unravel.
She made me a little nervous there. I'm not going to lie. No, but I was going to say, this episode is going to be really exciting because the first guest appearance we had, now granted, they're family members, so they know me the best. This is the most unraveling of a conversation we'll have. But what's also going to be really interesting is you've walked through your 20s. So now we get to pull some perspective from being in your 30s, which I'm pretty close to turning 30 myself, and I'm kind of excited about it.
It is something to be excited about.
So, Ashley, do you have a hot take?
I do. I think everyone should be decorated for Christmas by October 31st.
Ooh, drop your thoughts in the comments down below, and I'll let you know my thoughts and Ashley's thoughts at the end of this episode. Now, if you're listening on Spotify, you can cast your vote via the poll. The way to find the poll is if you press the show notes, you scroll all the way down to the bottom of the episode, there's the poll. So cast your thoughts on whether you should be decorating on October 31st, or are you waiting till after Thanksgiving? Let us know. So without any further ado, let's jump into our favorite topic here at Let's Unravel. Win of the week. So Ashley, being our guest today, do you have a win of the week?
I do. It's going to be a very vulnerable win of the week.
Ooh, let us in.
I'm excited to be out of the house.
That's awesome.
I'm a stay-home mom, and so basically getting out of the house is exciting. Having a babysitter to come do this was my win of the week.
That's awesome. And our win of the week here at Let's Unravel is you, of course, my sister. How could that not be a win? So moving into our topic of the day, or should I say, what are we unraveling today? Well, we are unraveling our 20s with Ashley.
Who is not in her 20s.
But still good, 30, flirty, and thriving.
That's right. And 30s are the best years.
That's what you keep telling me.
Yeah.
Now, do I get a refund if for some reason they're not?
No.
Okay, bummer. Okay, so Ashley, you're in your later 30s. You've lived your 20s. So now one of the common questions I like to ask is if you were going to sit down with your 20-year-old self, what is some wisdom that you would give to your 20-year-old self now having been in your 30s?
I would say get ready for everything to change. You've put all these expectations. You've now reached adulthood in your mind, and you have in ways, but your responsibilities change, your career changes, your dreams, all those things have a huge impact. And so you might think, I have to do this by this age, or I have to accomplish this by this set goal. And the reality is sometimes you meet those expectations, and then many times you don't.
Oh, I think that's so valid. I think that's perfect because we've talked so much about that just here at Let's Unravel, those expectations that you think you're going to have. But you know what? I really want to take this question a step further. That if you were going to sit down with your 20-year-old daughter in the future or something like that, what would you say to her? Because we know what you would say to you now. But now that you're giving this wisdom to someone outside of you, what would that look like?
Well, for my daughter, I'd definitely say, don't panic, don't worry. You're going to find the career, you're going to find the man, you're going to get the dream, you're going to pursue your dreams. You're still discovering you, and use that time in your 20s to pursue your passions and things that you're interested in. For instance, there were things I wanted to do before I got married. I wanted to skydive. I got all suited up, got ready to go. The wind came out. We had to cancel. But that's not something I want to do now that I have children. Not to sound ridiculous, but I don't want to take any chance of being separated from my children any earlier than I need to, although sometimes those breaks are nice. But no, honestly, it's I would encourage her to just put your heart into everything you do, give it your best, and, focus on enjoying your 20s.
That's awesome. No, I love that. I think it's amazing the advice that we would give to ourselves. But then as soon as you look at someone that's outside of you, it's kind of different advice. I love you brought up one topic in particular. You talked about career, because obviously in your 20s, that's a big topic. School is a big topic. Now, you took an unconventional route, just similar to me, taking an unconventional route, where instead of going to college from high school, you actually went right into the working force. So you went into working for our dad, which I've talked previously. He's owned his own business. And from that experience, you built upon it and you moved into other industries as well, whether working in restaurants, freelance or moving into working a 9 to 5. And so, with all of those experiences, say someone is just starting to embark and they're thinking about going an unconventional route, what kind of wisdom would you give? Because, like you said, there's kind of like that nervousness. You start to freak out a little bit and you're like, please, I need someone to ground me.
Mhm.
How would you ground them?
Ooh, grounding them. I would say the best thing you could do is pursue what makes you happy, especially in a career. Like you're going to be in it for a long time potentially. So, like, for instance, my son, he's 4 and he's obsessed with lawn mowing and all things outdoors. And it's like, if you know at this age that that's something you enjoy and you're good at, when you get older, if those passions still resonate within you, pursue those first. Don't do what you're expected to do. Do what you feel in your heart you're meant to do. Doing it like that, I think will get you to your goal quicker. There were expectations on myself. People who said, you got to go to college. You got to go to college. I have to admit, my parents knew and I knew that wasn't going to happen. I didn't test well. I did.
Oh, absolutely.
Smart person, I promise. But
Exceedingly brilliant.
but like college wasn't for me. I'm a hands-on learner and that my parents knew I had the determination and dedication to work hard. They were okay with me not going to college. And I had other people who were like, you're making a big mistake. You have to be at peace in the decisions you make and trust that if you're making the wrong ones, you can still get right back on track. And sometimes you have to fail or try something to realize this isn't for me. Look at you, for example. Christina wanted to do photography. She was dead set. I would have put money on it. She tried it. She got into it and she realized it was a niche. Is that the right word? Niche of what she wanted to do, but it wasn't the exact thing. Now you're doing this and this is where your joy is. And that's what makes the difference.
Absolutely. Photography. She meant film, but same difference.
I knew what she meant.
But I think it's perfect. So a long time ago, whenever I would say like, I'm a failure or I'm coming up short, and a lot of times like I'd have those conversations with our mom, and it was always one of those things like I failed. Like this was an epic fail. And then a long time ago, I think our mom was smart enough to label it like it wasn't a failure. You just tried. You tried something different. And that's really what it sounds like. What you're saying is it's like trying different things. And honestly, the thing that I love about you is you try things. You try things all the time. And the thing that's so cool is she has laser focus. So like when you're determined to do something, you can do it. And so that is the thing that I think is so unique and special. And we'll even get into more of the unique things that she's done along the way too. But even when you worked in a 9 to 5, I remember you had decided you were going to do like a whole training manual, like rewrite. So what did that look like? Because I mean, that sounds like a big undertaking that you are going to rewrite a whole training manual.
That's a little bit of my OCD. No, I would say, yeah, it was something I took upon myself because I love to help people. I think I have a teacher instinct in me. It was something I decided to do myself to help myself, but then to help others. And yeah, I love to organize. I love to detail things. And for me, it just came natural. That was something I thought would be beneficial to the company and to my own advancement for keeping all the details and the thoughts organized and arranged. So yeah.
That's awesome. And even kind of going back to this idea of career, was there at any point in your life where you're like, I think this is what I would possibly want to do? Because you mentioned like I was interested in photography and film. Was there something particular in your life that you're like, I think I could see myself doing something like this?
So career-wise, I would say I'm a very dedicated person to anything I do. I like to give 110%. I feel bad because sometimes I give 110% to people who are not able to handle my 110%. Sometimes my husband. But I would say career-wise, I'm just a dedicated person. If I say I'm going to help you or I'm going to do thing or I have a job, I'm going to give it 110%. That's in my bones. That's in my DNA, my structure. It's like you give your best and you give your all until you can't. For me, I just knew that I enjoyed the imagination of what a businesswoman would kind of look like. I wanted to be a businesswoman without the travel because I didn't want to travel alone as a woman. I just knew that I wanted to work hard and advance and succeed in my career. But honestly, in the deepest depths of me, I just wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. And I knew that from a young age. So for me, I got to do both. I got to have the career for a little while, and now I'm living my dream being a stay-at-home mom.
That's so awesome. I love that. So to pivot back to the you working a 9 to 5, honestly, I have to say after having been in a 9 to 5, I'm amazed that you were never in sales because I think you would have done like exceedingly well. I mean, when I say you're the life of the party, you are. But now I'm not talking like party girl, life of the party. I'm talking there's a warmth to you. You make everybody feel welcomed. You bring life. hence life of the party. But what I was
Thank
also
you.
going to say is I also love, because we got to have a really cool conversation probably like a couple years ago now, when you had just said like, no, my dream was to be a stay-at-home mom. So now like you're in this stage of life, you're living your dreams. There's a lot of people that maybe their dreams don't come to them till a little bit later, sometimes sooner. But what does that look like?
I'll say, to be honest, the dream was late. That's where I go back to the beginning where I said your expectations. I wanted to be married by 25, kids by 28. None of that went the way I planned. I was actually previously engaged, I think at 23, called that off, didn't know what I was going to do. Well, didn't know who I'd end up with, basically.
Understandable.
And everything changed. And again, going to my thing, in your 20s, everything is constantly evolving. You have expectations and things are changing.
I'm just going to pause for 1 second. We have a major age difference between us. We're 10 years apart. So she got married at 26, and this poor 26-year-old had to have a 16-year-old as her maid of honor. But yes, continue.
I would say, in my personal experience, obviously, that basically I had certain expectations for my 20s. I didn't meet them at all. And I would say that's why I love my 30s. I did accomplish, not that accomplish would be the word, but I got married. I had kids all in my 20s, but it was not in the order that I planned at the ages and, the marks I had set. However, it was beautiful the way it was, and it was meant to be that way. You are still discovering yourself at 20. I don't even feel like I was a true adult till I was 25. You know what I mean? I was previously engaged. I was thinking that I was going to have to work my entire life because we couldn't afford to,
You would have been the breadwinner.
yeah, basically. And I mentally prepared for that. And then to get married to someone who was able to take care of me was a huge change, a blessing.
Absolutely.
I love being home with my kids. It's everything I've dreamed of. So my dreams came, just not in the order and timeline that I had set for them.
With you having mentioned you were previously engaged, and to call off that engagement, regardless of who it was that called it off, was there shame around that you had to like try to break in the process? Because I feel like no one ever really talks about that.
I don't know that there was shame. I made the decision. It was slightly mutual, but I made the final nail in the coffin. And it was the best decision I made for both of us, I'm sure, because it just wasn't meant to be. I don't think there was shame, but every relationship you're in, I basically had a cousin who just told me this, I think, or I saw her posting a video for something she did, where it's basically like you have two pieces of paper, you glue them together, and now you try to rip them apart. There's going to be residual effects. There's going to be trickle down things from that. And you got to heal from it. All relationships are different. I have to say my relationship with my husband is like nothing I've ever had with any other significant other that I dated. And I'll say that because he respects me. He appreciates me. We don't cross those borders. When you cross those lines of respect, it's deteriorating.
Right,
It's
absolutely.
red flags. And that's what I would say, red flags in relationships. That was what broke my previous engagement off. I had certain red flags. I told myself I would never settle for this if I see this red flag. And you have to follow your own standards. And my standards were any red flags is a no-go. And in the moment, again, not shame, just fear, because now it's setting off my timeline. Now it's setting off when I'm having babies. Now it's setting off when I'm getting married. But you can't, that's not realistic. You're going to stay with the wrong person just to meet your goals. Tell God your plans and he laughs,
Right.
So I said, I'm going to not marry someone until I know them for 3 years so that they can't put on an act. They can't pretend to be someone they're not. And sure enough, I knew my husband exactly for 3 years. He was a friend. And long story short, we dated and 8 months later he proposed. God surprised me. So basically that took me by surprise and it was beautiful. And so I made up time in my mind on my timeline. But yeah, you can't put expectations on yourself that you have no real control of.
Right.
So,
Do I dare to say you have a love story like Jim and Pam?
you know what? I've never seen The Office. I'm sorry. I've seen it. I've never watched it, sat down and watched it. My husband's begged me to, and not begged, but he's like, we should watch that. And I was like, not right now. But now I wish I have. I would say me and my husband have a really unique story. We met at work and he was such a nice, great guy.
Jim.
Okay. Good. Fill in the gaps because I don't know. And he was so great. I actually tried to hook him up with my friend because I was engaged to the other guy. I tried to hook him up with my friend who ended up marrying my cousin. So good luck to her and him. But he was just a great guy and he was so real with me.
So what's hysterical about this whole story is, like I said, when I had my cousin Katie on, we have a very large family, especially on my mom's side. And so one cousin actually was like, Ashley, I got a guy for you, which happens to be our Jim in this story. And so, once again, hysterical because she's trying to set him up with someone else. One cousin's trying to do matchmaking. And let's just say it all worked out.
It did. And it's funny too, because it's like, that's the job. I got into insurance and I didn't want that job. That wasn't part of my plan. I didn't want to work insurance. I know nothing about insurance, but I went and that's where I met my husband, which is pretty cool.
That's awesome. I love it. Going back to this idea of talking about expectations and the thoughts that you had. And I think something that's really cool that I'd love to look at a little more is this idea when you were previously engaged, were you aware in a way it's almost like you were giving up your dream? Because to think that you were going to be the breadwinner, that you weren't going to get to stay at home. And then all of a sudden it's like your life takes a massive pivot. Because the other thing that I love about you is you love so fiercely. So, like, to step away from a relationship like that, it cost you something. And like you said, it cost you your timeline. But then to step into this other relationship where all of a sudden you get to not only love fiercely, but you get to be loved fiercely. I think that's so beautiful. But were you aware of almost like you were going to sacrifice a dream?
I knew when I was with the other person, I knew that I was giving up motherhood and it broke my heart, to be honest, because that was something I was really passionate about. Looking back, I wasn't really thinking everything through.
Understandable.
I would say I knew I was giving up part of my dream, but I thought I was fulfilling another part of my dream. But when weighed on the scales, I'm thrilled that I ended up being a stay-home mom now. I think the thing is, honestly, Christina, you know deep down, even though I knew, oh, I'm going to marry him and I'm going to have to put my kids off in daycare, even though my dream is to be home with them and stuff. I think, honestly, deep down, part of me knew that either I wasn't really going to end up with him when the day came. You just know. Your gut knows. And I think it worked out.
Absolutely. And once again, even going back to this idea of talking about dreams. So your dream was motherhood. That's not everybody's dream. And that is something I think because of having had so many different working experiences, I've learned to appreciate so much because we had a heart to heart a couple years ago and you said your dream was motherhood. And then when you looked at me, you go, so like your dream's motherhood too. And when I told you no, I remember you being shocked because I think it's one of those things as people, when you have certain experiences, you tend to start to think that's everyone's experience. So for someone like we both were raised by a stay-at-home mom, it's easy to stop and to think, well, why wouldn't that also be your dream? Because that's what we were brought up with. Whereas for me, I'm like, my dream was like, I always wanted to start my own business. I wanted to run things. And I remember talking to you about it and you're like, yeah, I didn't see that coming.
It's so true. It's so funny you say that because it's like, I just assumed everyone wants to be a stay-home mom, but it's not the case and not everyone can. And I almost couldn't. So it's not realistic to think everyone can do it or wants to do it.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
No, absolutely.
I just knew that was what I wanted and that was my dream.
It's one of those things, the world is so beautiful because of everyone having such unique dreams. It brings unity to all of us. And so that's where it's like it offsets. Because even people like I have people in my own life where it's like they've chosen not to get married, they haven't had kids, but then they've also gotten to be like mentors to those that do have kids. So when all of a sudden you're going through rocky patches with your parents and different things, who are you going to? Oh, you're going to those people that were like mentors. So it's like there's a place for everybody. I just think it's also you have to be willing to allow yourself to see, once again, see beyond expectations.
And I would say, even though my dream is to be home with my kids, they're now getting older. They're going to pre-K 4. That dream is completed, I'd say. It never ends. You're still a mom forever. But, and I'm not complaining about that. I love it. I'm just saying it changes, you know? And now it's hitting new territories of their ages that makes it fun. And they can joke back and tease you and get your humor. And
I've never been roasted more in my life than from her children.
yeah. So now I'm moving back into my other dreams.
Yeah.
Because you can't just have one dream. You should never stop dreaming. You should never stop having ambitions and motives and things to drive you and push you. So I'm looking forward to when my little one in a couple of years goes to pre-K 4, I get to pursue some of the next level of my dreams that I have.
Oh, absolutely. And yeah, I can't wait to see those too. So to laser focus on two more ideas, and now we've talked about career, we've talked about relationships, but I'd love to do an even deeper dive into those topics. But to kind of wrap up this generalized idea of your life in your 20s, in a whole, your 20s, would you say they were good? Were they bad? Would you dare to say your 20s suck?
I would say your 20s are actually like your lost years. At least they were for me in some ways. And not entirely lost, but I wish that I pursued some of those things that I wanted to do, like before kids, before marriage, just a little more. If I can go back and change anything, I think that would be something. Yeah. I love to be out and socializing. You learn stuff from people. You learn different cultures, different habits, different energies, different things from different people. And it's fun. And you get to hold on to those things that you learn and take them with you. Sometimes you can reflect back on them and they're helpful. Other times they're useless. But no, honestly, there's just so much to get out of living life.
You have to have connection with other people,
Yes,
ultimately.
yes, it's important.
And those connections, I will say, especially having friendships with people that are very different than you, it will give you empathy.
Absolutely.
And that is something I've learned massively in my 20s. Like people that have different political views, people that have different religious views, what happens is it ultimately creates a well-roundedness in you as an individual. And I think personally, empathy or even just understanding is helpful for anybody.
I mean, I will say, I definitely did a lot in my 20s. I'm going out, like, and when I say going out, it's out to eat with friends, family,
Right.
just being busy. Not that I didn't do a lot of it already. I did do a lot of that, but it's just now that I have a family and I have schedules and meetings and things I have to like be committed to with my
Right.
responsibilities, I don't have as much time for that. And so I guess I just wanted to seize that a little more.
Absolutely. No, that makes sense. All right. She might think I'm throwing her under the bus a little bit. But so for the trailer of this podcast, no, it's not the trailer of the podcast. She made fun of my trailer for the podcast, but it's also hysterical. But I was going to say, in my first episode, I sent you the episode and I had said, which apparently was very controversial, that I said my 20s sucked. And I remember you saying, really? They sucked? And then it was funny because as I would talk to you about it and like break it down, all of a sudden you're like, my 20s sucked too.
Yes. I would say when I first heard your trailer, I was cracking up because of how you were introducing it. How did it go again?
Okay, so for the trailer, listen, so what I did is I gave myself a very small window of time. I gave myself like 2 to 4 weeks to launch an entire podcast. Now, you might not know how production works. That is insane. That's like running a marathon with absolutely no training. And so my podcast trailer resembles a lack of thought. And so there's unplanned music.
So let me put it this way. Christina made a trailer, right? Is that the word?
Oh, you can go watch it on YouTube by all means.
And it's my first time watching it. And I know she gave herself some strict deadlines, so she was working quickly. But when I watched it and I was like, do you have sleepless nights? Are you unable to focus? I was like, what kind of pharmaceutical intervention are you promoting here? Because there was also some background music, do, and I'm like, this feels like a commercial you'll see on like late night television.
This is a completely clean podcast. But apparently the trailer was not alluding to that.
Right.
But then, so we laughed hysterically about that podcast trailer and we laughed about it extensively with extended family as well. But what was funny is the first episode, that was when I told you about when I had said your 20s suck.
Oh, yeah.
I got a lot of flack when I said my 20s sucked. And the reason why I said it, which I had stated in the episode, was how I'd heard an entrepreneur. She had said the exact same thing. She's about your age. And she goes, your 20s, they suck. They're like, you don't have the job that you want. You're not arriving at the destinations or the life goals that you want. And you're doing a lot of things you don't want to do. Therefore, they suck. Like, and it's true because it's your first decade of being an adult. And what do you think happens in your first decade of being an adult? You have no concept of anything.
I will say, I completely agree. And at the same time, my 20s were awesome. I got to do so much. I was always at bonfires, always going out to eat, celebrating birthday parties with friends, getting invited to this, that, and the other. I was also involved in many community style activities that kept me busy. So there's so much truth to it sucking in ways, but you can also definitely look back and say, oh, I appreciate that moment. I appreciate that time.
We're not throwing out the baby with the bathwater, FYI. She's just trying to walk back her answer. She got married in her 20s. She has liabilities that she needs to assess.
My early 20s started off rough. My later 20s, I'm proud of.
Absolutely. Yeah. So needless to say, they could start rough. They could end rough. You can find redeeming through all of them. So
Absolutely.
So to close out the Life in Our 20s segment, I have to ask you one question. What has been the most transformational year so far for you? It could be in your 20s, it could be in your 30s, but what has been one year that you're like, ooh, like I love that year. If I had to do it over, I would.
So 23, I think that's when I started working at the insurance company. But that was the year I was engaged. Then I wasn't engaged. Then I'm starting like a new career that I know nothing about. And the really push comes to shove, like, feet to the ground, you got to dive in as an adult. If you're not going to college, you got to build yourself a career. You got to make money. You have to have a salary that supports your spending. It was the year I had to learn how to make a budget. I had to pay car insurance. It's all those things that maybe you were already doing those things earlier, but it was the year that really this was your make or break. You had to make it work.
No, absolutely. It's always so unique to see what your 23 looked like versus like my 23. Because I know in a previous episode, I had even said, like, by 23, I was fully running a store and I had people relying on me for things. Like, I would always say all the time, like, what is a sick day? Like, I wasn't allowed to have sick days. Like, I could have the flu and I was still there. And so it's just always so interesting to hear, like, what 23 looked like for you. And that's so cool too, where it's even like, this was so transformational. I thought I was going one direction, changed course, and moved into something bigger and better. So we had a great conversation about all things about life in your 20s and even the perspective you gain from being in your 30s. And I think that's wonderful. And now I really want to focus on career because that is a big thing that we talk about here at Let's Unravel. Here in your 20s, people need career advice, people need life advice. So moving into career, you've gotten to try a lot of different things, gotten to be in a lot of different industries. And I think that's what made you such a well-rounded person today. Do you want to take us a little like quick step by step of what your career process looked like from the time you graduated high school to where you are now?
Sure. First of all, thank you for all the compliments. What a sister, right? I mean, you have been making me sound so nice. Thank you. No,
It's easy to do when the person. Why do you keep telling
I
me
know.
to
Sorry,
stop?
sorry.
Okay. Listen, I don't give her a lot of compliments to begin with, so you gotta. No, I was gonna say, hey, it's always easy to brag about people when there's a lot to brag about. So
I'm going to go all off on about how amazing she is in about 2 seconds. So I would say first, I have to give this a lot of credit. When I was 16, I was determined to get a job. I wanted a car. I had to pay for my own car. So I got a job. I turned 16, told my parents to drop me off at the local supermarket. It was a little tiny market that's not there anymore. It's so cute. But anyways, and I worked there as a cashier. All the cashiers were like 16, in high school.
yeah,
And basically, in a short time, I became head supervisor. And I was dealing with things like the nightly deposit, cashing out the drawers. I had to deal with theft. I had to deal with employees that were late or just all kinds of things. Crazy people who weren't getting their lottery tickets, the correct numbers that they wanted. Like
that's
just
funny.
silly things that you just don't anticipate to run into. What was it? At the time, baby formula was the hot commodity that people were stealing and stuff. I had to manage and take control over at a very young age, but it was a great responsibility. I had to make all the schedules for all the kids. I'll call them kids. We were kids at the time of when they can come in and, a lot of them, I can't do this date. I can't do that date. So I got a lot of experience with that. After high school, I went to go work for my dad. It was very humbling, I have to say. My dad works in a shop where there is sawdust everywhere. And you would go home covered in it. I mean, head to toe. I mean, don't sneeze. No joke.
Yeah.
Like it was bad. It was
Yes.
disgusting. So it was humbling. Not to mention, so I was his office management and I was cleaning toilets for men. Okay. Disgusting.
Mhm.
And the refrigerator and this and that. But I was also writing out their paychecks for them. So I got to do the office work, which is the part I loved and thrived on. Also, there was my favorite part was dad would make me go out on like office runs to get material and things. And that was my favorite because you get to go in the car and listen to music and talk to whoever you wanted.
Back when she worked for our dad, the location, he moved several times, but the location they were at, they had a food truck come through. And that was my favorite part about getting to visit was they'd have a food truck come through and then you'd be like, add it to my tally.
Add it to my tab, yeah. So that was for my dad. I went on from there to jumping into the insurance world. Like I said, I had no experience. My cousin was the one who said, come try it out. And there's a guy here. I'm like, Cousin Joe. I said, I am engaged. Why are you trying to show me this guy? Sure enough, I married that guy.
Hence Jim and Pam's story.
And so I went to work in the insurance. It was a miracle I got the job. And like I said, I'm a dedicated person. I wanted more money because I'm young. I got the energy. Let's save up as much money as I can. I'm sure not many people think this, but I wanted to bring as much money to my marriage that I possibly could. So I, at the time, still working a 9 to 5, but also went and then also got a nighttime job. I did Ruth's Chris. Do you remember that?
That's right. Forgot you were working in insurance and doing that.
Yes. So I would go work the first job,
Mhm.
then I'd go and at night work and weekends.
I mean, there was a point in time, I think, when you were working like 24/7 because it was nonstop.
Yeah. And going back to the supervisor one for Oliver's, it was a little supermarket. I had to be up at like 6 o'clock in the morning. That really taught me on weekends and stuff. It's good groundwork. So every
Yes.
job builds upon itself. That's a hit to mom because mom said that. So every job does build upon itself. Going fast forward to working at Ruth's Chris now, I started as a food runner. I had to start at the lowest position. Not that that's a low position for people, but I started as food runner. Then I became a busser, then a hostess, then a waitress. And I'll just say again, I learned I am not a waitress. I am the world's worst waitress. And shout out to Sheila for, razzing me about it. Like she knew I was horrible, but she motivated me. I tried my hardest, but I sucked. So I was not a good waitress. Actually, the day I was going in to say, can I go back to being a hostess and not a waitress? They said, Ashley, can we have a quick meeting? And they pulled me and they're like, yeah, this isn't working out. I'm like, I know. So it was pretty funny. But I did the food running and this is a steak place, a nice steakhouse, right? And so you are popping your arm up and you were lifting these trays and you got like 10 steaks on there, sizzling hot butter, the Ruth's Chris style. And basically it was hard work. And thank God for Enver, who saved my butt one time when my arm was about to give out and he swooped up behind me and I didn't spill steaks all over this poor gentleman. And then
You're forgetting the plates that the steaks are on. For anybody that hasn't been to Ruth Chris, those plates are like 100 degrees, right? Or hotter.
more, yeah, I can't remember. I want to say like
So-
300. I don't know. It's like they're sizzling hot.
So not only you drop the steak on him, but the plate to go with it,
Oh, yeah.
that would have been bad.
A nightmare. Then, of course, there was a time I was talking to the manager, trying to be all cool and whatever. Loaded up my tray with about 10 cups, turned to take one move, and and that sound again was as they all fell all over the table. And so, again, trying to be a hot shot, trying to be good at your job, whatever. I was lousy at those things. Then I found my thing. So fast forwarding to insurance, all those previous jobs had really given me a humbling experience. It's a different environment going to work for all guys where you're covered in sawdust than going into the insurance world where everyone's like in suits and slacks and
Yeah.
dresses. And I remember the first day going into work and I was like, what do I even wear? I had never had a real job.
Right.
So I was really nervous at the time. I had this horrible, horrible short haircut. So that wasn't working with me either. So anyways, long story short, all those jobs got me the confidence and got me the skills I needed to feel confident that I was deserving of like a real job.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I was really good at what I did. I enjoyed what I did. I was too confident at times. But anyways, when I got pregnant with my daughter, I had reached my dream. I wanted to be a supervisor there. And I did. I was on maternity leave and they said, we're going to promote you to supervisor. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Yeah, but I want to be home with my babies. So it was kind of funny. Like I reached the dream, but it was another dream. For me, it was the kids. It was being home with my kids. So that
That's
dream
awesome.
outweighed the other dream.
Now, how long were you in that career for of insurance?
I'm really bad with numbers and dates and all those things. If I had to guess, like 8 years.
Yeah, I think it was about 7,
I think
8
because
years.
I think you told me a couple minutes ago.
I was like, hey, don't forget you worked there for about like 7, 8 years.
Yeah.
Hey, it's mommy brain, things
Yeah.
happen. No, but I think that's cool. You having been there about 7, 8 years, give or take, that's enough time to really kind of understand what's going on. Because it's like you have a grasp of everything, you have the relationships. I have to say, even like your waitressing job, all your jobs, like you said, they all build upon each other. But it's even one of those things like when you started working in insurance, correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't it a smaller company? Like almost like you were past the point of being a startup, but it was more of an intimate like gathering at that point.
Yes. When I started, it was an established company and
Right,
everything.
right.
But the people you worked with, it was a tight crew. And it was fun because the people you work with are like the people you spend your lives with. That's why it's
Yes.
so important to pick a job you like. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I had a manager once tell me, he goes, "You could love where you work, but if you hate the people," he goes, "why are you there?"
That's true. So yeah, I love where I work. I had a great group of people and I enjoyed going to work. It was fun. And of course, that's where I met my husband. And I know I keep saying that, but he wasn't at the time a love interest. He was just
Right.
him. So it was neat to be friends with him, get to know him, develop a friendship, get to know this guy, and not knowing that years later I'd marry him.
I remember reading an article about the best ways to form romantic relationships. They actually say working together is great because you get to see them in every kind of environment, because being stressed, being happy. So I'm like, you even think about that. That was, you got to see his full character on display before you ever went on a date with him.
Mhm.
So I'm like, I think that's really cool.
That's neat. I would say too, now being like in my 30s, I want to say early 30s, but unfortunately not. Now that I'm at the age I'm at, going back and realizing those positions I was in, I was young,
Absolutely.
going 16, 20, whatever, all those careers, I was young. I was still learning. So I would say, like, to young people, like, don't beat yourself up if you don't complete the task the right way or you screw up. Like, everyone's doing it, like,
Yeah.
in that age. Like, you're all learning, you're all young. Cut yourself some slack. I put a lot of pressure on myself,
Yes.
so much pressure. I could look back and say, and it like changed the way I did things because I was trying to just do it perfect and do it right. So just cut yourself some slack. And being in my 30s, going back, when you're at the supermarket, when you're at these jobs where maybe you have a young waitress, cut them some slack. Have some respect for the position they are in. They're learning. This could be their first job. I've seen it actually where I go to Dunkin' Donuts and I give them a 10 and they have to make change and they're panicking about the change. It's not that these people aren't intelligent. It's just,
Right.
it's their first time. They're nervous, just like being on the show. There's nerves, right? But it's like
Right.
when you are taking care of a table as a waitress, right? Oh my gosh, I was taking care of a table. They ordered this beautiful glass of wine. And should I
Yes.
tell this story?
I love this story.
Ay. So this family, I think it was a family, or four top, ordered a glass of wine or bottle of wine.
So anyone that hasn't worked in restaurants, what is a four top?
Sorry, it is four people sitting at a table.
Perfect.
So thank you. And basically, they ordered a glass of wine, and I had to hold it in a cloth, and I had to take out this beautiful wine cork thing, and unscrew it, pop it out, and pour it in their drinks. So, how difficult, right? Well, let me remind you or tell you, I don't drink. I don't have a lot of experience with opening wine bottles at 18 years old or whatever. So, long story short, I start to unscrew the cork, and the cork breaks in the bottle. Now, if you know, wine drink, that's a huge no-no. Like, I've just tainted the whole glass of wine, and this thing costs a couple $100, or it could have been more because there's like top shelf, whatever. So long story short, the guy at the table felt so bad for me. He goes, "Hand it to me, sweetie. I'll do it." And I remember looking at him. I was like shaking and I was like, "I can't, or I could lose my job." And I felt bad because he's probably thinking, well, I don't want to drink that.
Right.
I have to decant that now. And then on top of it, I'm only 5'1". So getting back and the way back to pour those glasses in those glasses was very difficult for me. So needless to say, the whole experience of them ordering a glass of wine was probably traumatizing to them. So if they ever see this wherever you are out in the world, I apologize. That was like probably like a nightmare to watch. But again, it's just that showing respect for younger people and realizing they're learning and experiencing things for the first time, and cut them some slack. And that's what this family did. And thank God, because I could have went home crying that night.
Oh, trust me, I have gone home many a times crying, having worked in customer service facing roles. No, but I was even going to say, I love how you even talked about when you're 16 and you're working at the grocery store. And it's a perfect example where, like, because I've been a trainer, I've worked with a lot of young people with it being their first job to college age. And the first thing I always love to tell people that I would have told you at 16 is, one, I'd say the role that you hold, that's a lot of pressure.
Mm.
Like, you're making schedules, you're doing deposits, you're talking to people when they're late. I mean, dear God, I think the first time I had to sit down and reprimand somebody, I was at least like 21 or 22. And then they were terrified of me afterwards. But that's one of those instances where I'd be like, you are the exception, because not everybody does that. So it's even one of those things, like, you put a lot of pressure on yourself. That's something I love to tell people, where it's like, you got to take some pressure off, because that's just not always realistic. But even like that story about doing the wine, I think that's a perfect illustration of like, there's been times where I've been the person sitting at the table and you're just like, you're not inconveniencing me. It's fine. I mean, I'm not a wine drinker, but it's also one of those things where I'm like, you're also giving them a story too. So as much as it's like, I embarrassed myself, they're still like, that poor thing.
Things come to mind when you're talking, but it's like I was 16, 17 years old, locking up a supermarket,
Right.
opening it up in the morning. I'm surprised they even let us do that, to be honest.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just great learning foundations. Every little situation you encounter, big or small, whatever it is something to learn from.
Absolutely. I mean, there was even a time when I was working in fast food and I was like 17, maybe 18. And I remember being at work, some random guy just walks in off the street and he starts asking me and the other kid I'm working with. Meanwhile, we're under 18. We're closing a store. There's no management. It's just us. And they start asking if they could use our cell phones. And you're instantly like, red flag, this is weird. And then you could see they're starting to look at the cameras and you're like, oh, you're casing the place. This is great. And you're like, you're 17 or 18. You have no experience. You don't know what to do in that instance. Meanwhile, I hear my mother in the background of my head saying, just give them the money, which they didn't hold us up, luckily. But that was just one of those instances. Nothing prepares you for that. And even if you're 25, nothing can kind of prepare you for that unless you happen to work in an environment where you get held up a lot, then maybe you're not alarmed.
I would say too, Christina, just like thinking as we talk and like what advice I can personally give, because I don't want it just to be all about me or something. The thing is, like me and my husband say all the time, college is to show that you can commit to something, that you
Right.
can show up on time. Obviously, it's so much more than that too. I'm not discrediting college, and for some careers, you absolutely need it. Like, please don't misunderstand me. What I'm saying is, there's people who just have no drive, no determination, no desire to learn. That's what, when people go to hire you, I'll say this. I've been in positions where I've interviewed for hiring for different jobs. I did it for my dad's company. I did it for the insurance company, whatever. So many times. My point is this. You have to have dedication and ambition in your own self that people can see and kind of notice, right?
Absolutely.
So that you're putting out the vibes that you are a reliable, on time, dedicated. I think a lot of problems with like today's generation is like, oh, I'm 5 minutes late. It's no big deal. I think you said it in your last podcast about what my husband's motto is.
When I was 16 years old, he would start to say to me, he's like, if you're 15 minutes early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. And if you're 15 minutes late, don't show up.
Yeah. And I tried to repeat it back to him the other day and he's like, you're screwing it all up. And I was
Right.
like, I got the general idea. But that's what I'm saying. Like in your 20s, be on time, show up. Like they say, dress for the position you want to have. I think I've heard you say
Absolutely.
that. I probably hear everything, all of my inspirational quotes from her from watching her podcast. But you have to put that on. You have to get in that zone. And I think, like, I hate to say, there's kids that are in college now that just want to party. But then I see some that are dedicated and they're studying and they're focused and they're having fun and they're living life too. But you can sense a difference, right? And an employer is looking for that difference as well, is what I'm trying to say. And if you want to set yourself up for success, I would encourage you to put on the suit that would suit that.
I like that. Put on the suit that suits that.
Real creative, Ash.
It's a sticky thought.
Oh,
That's
yes,
fixed.
good. I don't have any sticky thoughts. So there we go.
No, but I was even going to say, going back to the being on time, when you have parents that own their own business, it's drilled into you a whole different level of commitment. Because when you own your own business, you think about so many things that you don't think about when you're just an employee. That's the way we were raised, where it's like you consider this business almost like it's your own. And then it's so interesting when you get into the world. And I remember having one girl that I worked with, and she was telling me about her interviewing process at the place we worked. And luckily, I didn't interview her, but I told her, I remember the day you were scheduled for an interview. You showed up 5 minutes late. I go, you're lucky I didn't interview you. I wouldn't have hired you.
No.
I go, because you don't show up 5 minutes late to a job interview. And the reason why I was so strict on that is I had a manager that said, if I have to tell you how to present for an interview, then you're not going to be a good employee. So I had a conversation with her after a year of her being there. And she goes, you wouldn't have hired me? And I go, no, because you can't show up 5 minutes late. And she goes, my friends told me to not be on time because they said you don't want to look too eager. If you want a job interview, you need to look eager. So, and I remember her saying that, and I was like, no, don't listen to your friends.
And you need to prepare. I remember I was in insurance and I wanted to apply to be an underwriter and prepared. I practiced for the interview, for what questions they were going to say, especially because I knew
Right.
the person interviewing me liked to throw curveballs. And so you have to make the extra effort because it's noticeable. And
Absolutely.
I will say this too, which will throw a kink in everything. It is a lot of who you are as a person.
Absolutely.
There's certain, and I'm probably not giving this the right type of definition, but like there's certain positions that hold certain kind of character. Does that make sense?
What she's referring to is called personality hires. Some people just get hired based on
Yes.
personality.
I would say I happen to maybe get hired by my personality with the insurance thing because I swear my interview, we talked about American Idol like the whole time.
I will say, so when I was working in insurance and I was hiring people, and I remember someone had come up to me after like they had gotten hired, had been there for a couple months, and they're like, "You talked to me about like what my favorite book was." And I go, "I already knew you could do the job. I wanted to know if you could fit the company
The
itself."
culture.
The culture.
There we go. I couldn't find the word, but we always used to say that.
Yes,
Do you fit the culture? You don't want to set somebody up for failure either.
absolutely.
Like when you were referring to when I first started, like the first time I got into insurance and like the group of people that we had and we were working with, it was like we all were like buddies, like,
Yeah,
and just like teased each other. Like there was just a great melting pot of
absolutely.
people. But if you were to put in the wrong person, and you know what I'm saying, like I know I'm not
Absolutely.
describing this well, but you put in the wrong personality, it taints the pot.
Ultimately, you're building a team. It's like the Marvel Avengers. Not every superhero is the same, but you need to have the same objective. And that's where personalities come into play. So even like that seriousness, if you're working in a company, especially if you're working in like a startup, if you're working in a small like family-owned business, you need to have people that it's like you're having the same objective, but you're also rubbing together really well because what happens is when you're doing beyond 40 hours, these are the people you're grinding with. You want to make sure it's like iron sharpens iron and not just like metal on metal and
Yeah.
your brakes are gone.
And getting back to like with our dad having his own business, there's times where like people would just not show up to work. You see the bind that it puts on your parents. You got a job that's out tomorrow and it's not going to get done. That throws off the job for next week. You see disrespect to the
Right.
employer, to our dad, like the way some of these people would talk to my dad, and it like breaks your heart, you know? It just gives you a new respect for the different levels of any job.
Absolutely.
And that was something I would say, like, every job is important. You couldn't do your job if we didn't do our job or I didn't do
Absolutely.
my job. And they're important. Every position is important.
It's true. Now, we've talked about your different extensive career paths, and it's just so unique because one of the biggest things I see through all the jobs that you had, it's always this you valuing people. And what's so cool is you valued people within your work experience, within her career. What's also been really cool is you've actually taken, I'll call it side quests,
Mhm.
but you've done other things where you volunteered. So you were part of recovery programs. She's done things during like COVID where you organized a whole, we'll say meal train, but really what it was you were fundraising to get some money. Can you kind of walk us through like you were part of a recovery program. Now, you yourself have never had any issues with substance or alcohol like that. But how does someone decide that it's like, ooh, I want to step out into this field? And once again, you're building more empathy towards that. So, what was that like?
I think what drives me is love and kindness. And I don't just mean like everybody love everybody. I mean, like during COVID, I did start something called Stay Home and Feed. I was like, if they're going to trap us in the house, then what can I do to help? It was just a time where we needed to be uplifted. And
Absolutely.
so I did something called Stay Home and Feed, which was like, it was couch donation. And it was just to help feed the nurses at the hospitals. I did make a meal train, and my cousin helped me with that. So shout out to Melissa. Thank you for all your help on that. And basically, I have a heart for people. I do it to see people happy. And then it just fills me with like this unspeakable joy. So that's why I did the Stay Home and Feed. But also, yes, going back to the recovery program, it was called Celebrate Recovery. It's a great program. And it was a program that was always known, like you always think it's for, you know, drug addiction or substance abuse, but it's not. It's for everyone. It's like hurts, habits, and hangups. I was, how old was I at the time? 20?
You were in your early 20s when you were
Yeah.
doing that.
I started that and I did it for a boy and I joined it. And honestly, I found so much that I needed to work through that I didn't know that I was like struggling with on the inside. And basically, it's a great program. You get together in groups with women, men with men. And, like, I worked through, like, this workbook that I just got to, like, answer questions about, like, my past and childhood, and it just dug up things, and you talk with people, and I just got so much healing that even our dad said to me, he goes, "Your laugh is different." I started laughing different. The sound of my laugh was different because I didn't know. I had a lot of anger as a kid, and I feel bad for my brother and my sister because especially my brother Justin, I was not a nice sister. I was bossy, I was mean, I was angry all the time. I don't know why. I didn't know why, but I got healed from it. And I feel different because
Yeah.
I walked through it. I was nasty to you. What big sister tells a little sister, I'm going to pin you up next to that door if you don't shut up? You know,
In all fairness, I was also not as nice.
right. But no, honestly, like I regret the way I behaved as a younger child, but it does. Your childhood forms your adulthood.
Absolutely.
And I'm glad I got healing and recognition of what I was dealing with internally in my early 20s. Because if you're walking around with all this like trauma, it impacts every area of your life.
Absolutely.
And so I think that's a roundabout answer, but basically heal yourself, discover yourself, and love others.
Absolutely. It's also funny because as much as you're like, I was a rough big sister, I was a little punk too. I mean, there was even times one of your like first boyfriends bought you like a balloon or something, and our screen door was broken, and I was like, I want to see the balloon fly away, and I just let it go, and she was not happy. But I think I knew somewhere deep down. But it's also one of those things. Everybody, my favorite thing is how in a house there was three of us. It was you, my older brother, me, and it's like we all have different experiences. So even the version of mom that you got is a different version that I got, which is so interesting. And it even goes back to dreams because you got a true stay at home mom. And by the time I was like 10, she went to work. So that's also probably why, in a way, I'm like, oh, career oriented, because it's like that was the version of her I saw the most of. But I think that also goes back to a beautiful representation of sisterhood where it's like we've gotten to see each other at our worst, but that also makes our connection so deep because I'm sure having 10 years of an age gap, you wonder how close will we actually be because you're getting married at 26 and I have a geometry test and third period. So
Yeah, and I would say, so going to the age gap thing,
we shared a room. I was 10, you were 20. Now, granted, you were engaged, so the thought of like trying to move out seemed ridiculous because you were going to get married. But it is crazy as soon as I turned 20 to think, oh my God, if I had to share a bedroom with a 10-year-old, I'd be like, please no.
right? And so I can say if you have siblings and you're still young and they're still 10 or however old, if you're in your 20s, yeah, it gets good. She's my best friend. We are the typical send each other 25 reels or TikToks or whatever, but she's also like my go-to when I want to talk bad about mom. No, just kidding. I never talk bad about mom. I love mom. She's my best friend too. Let's not lie here. But no, when they get to 20 or 16 and you're 26, it's awesome.
Yeah. And also, I will say, who you marry really rounds everything out too. Because as soon as you started to date, like your now husband, I remember when he stepped into the picture and it was like, do we want to bring Christina along to this? And it was just like I gained a brother. And I was like 13 when I met your now husband. So in a way, it was like gaining a little sister. But it's like I remember there was a lot of times like getting to tag along. All those memes about the older sister and the boyfriend and the younger sister duo, that was us. That was our trio.
Yeah.
We did things, the three of us, all the time. So,
Well, my husband made the mistake of promising Christina here a Taylor Swift concert.
no, you're getting it all wrong. So, he made a promise that he didn't think that I would remember. Little did he know I have an amazing memory. And so he goes, when you turn 16, I will pay for you to have a limo and drive you into New York City and give you like a whole like weekend in New York City. So, of course, I turned 16 and I'm like,
Hold up your
hello,
end of the
like,
bargain.
yeah, where you at? And so instead, he goes, I'll give you the next best thing because he's like, I'm not going to spend a couple grand. So I was like, understandable. So that's when he decided to surprise me with Taylor Swift tickets. And then my sister in law was like, I will personally take you to the Taylor Swift concert. So that was
Because
really
I
exciting.
was definitely not going to be going to that.
Hey, but I made my sister in law a Swiftie, so you're welcome.
But yeah, that's one great thing about my husband. Like when he says he's going to do something, he follows through.
Oh, absolutely.
He just didn't think he would have to.
I think it's one of those moments where you're like, ooh, I'll make a big promise. And then you're like, that big promise is going to cost a lot.
Yes.
Okay, so to wrap up our conversation in career, And to kind of give a little bit of a sister spin on it, is I will say, so from the time I was like 5 years old, when it's like you're a kid and it's like you have the first person that like you look up to. And it's like I can easily say it was Britney Spears. No, I'm totally kidding. I'm totally kidding. No, but I remember being like 5 and it's like, who do you look up to? And it's like, oh, well, my big sister. Cause like, how could you not? Like, and in my eyes, it was like you could never do anything wrong. Kind of like that relationship you want to have, like, or you hope to have type of thing. But what's been really cool is with getting older, and like I said, when you get older, you start to have a real understanding of what certain things take and understanding how realistic things are. And one of the things that I can say with complete certainty is, so you didn't go to college, but like, I don't doubt your brilliance at all. I know she doesn't want to admit that she's brilliant, which is fine. I will take that as my job to acknowledge your brilliance. But one of the things that I think is so cool is we talked about how you're determined. And I love how when you are determined to do something, you are like a dog with a bone. You will get it done. And one of the coolest things I've ever seen you do is they built a house and the architect totally screwed up your blueprints and you mapped them all out. No experience, no YouTube, right?
Man.
And she just did it all entirely herself. And I'm like, I think that's so wild. But once again, you look at your background, creating manuals, reprimanding people at 16. Now, based on my description, do you believe that you could do anything you put your mind to?
Only if I want to do it. Because it's hilarious that I'll try to do something, but my heart's not in it. I don't get there. But when I'm like interested in something or passionate about something, I'm obsessive when like I go all in. And it's good and it's bad for the people I work with, like on a project. Like right now, I'm helping out with something and I'm like, am I driving this person crazy? Because I get so passionate about what I do. But I just, I enjoy doing my best and trying my best.
Do you have one experience where you're like, that was the hardest thing I've ever done?
A marriage, it's not the hardest, but it could be. I would say before you get married, it's critical to discuss the roles of the marriage. What do you expect out of your spouse and what do they expect out of you? I think if me and my husband weren't so successful at this, I think we would be miserable. I think if your marriage is stuck now because you're having complications or issues, finances, this or that, it's not too late. That would be my encouragement. I would say these things can still be resolved. You just have to sit down and discuss expectations, what roles, who's putting the kids to bed, who's washing the laundry, who's ordering the groceries, who's changing the oils in the car, who's taking out the trash. Those are simple things that get done. But if you don't discuss and work out and agree, it's very easy to get resentful. Oh, they didn't take out the trash. Well, he didn't know you wanted him to take out the trash. Or, why didn't he get my oil changed? Well, you're a big girl. Why don't you go take your own car to get
Right.
my husband's never done that. He's always taken care of me. But there's nothing wrong with that. I am a big girl. I can't go get an oil change. So, and some husbands would expect that. Our dad is a very women can do everything and anything. Like, put your mind to it, you could do it, which is probably why I am so motivated for all the things that I do. So, thank you, Dad. But, like, I would say you have to define those things because otherwise it can very quickly and easily crumble.
Absolutely.
And so I would say getting married is difficult. That could have make or break you. But I'm proud to say me and my husband we're really good communicators with each other. There's just so much respect for what he does and what I do. One of the things we actually have set in place is he takes care of outside, I take care of inside.
I love that.
And so he does the Christmas lights, he does the landscape, he does the lawn, he'll take out the trash. I will make sure we have dinner. I will say he even helps with that too. He'll order a pizza every once in a while and be like, hey, how about this for dinner? But like, I will make sure the house things, the home things. So it's like we respect each other's roles. And when we're in the mood, we help each other out because that's what you do.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, anyways, but I would say to answer your question in a long roundabout way, marriage is definitely like a hard thing you can do.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to lie, our first couple years, you are working some of those things out. There were moments of miscommunication or unexpected assumptions you'd make that, oh, my spouse should be doing this. Well, if you never told them, how are they supposed to know?
That's a perfect answer. And it helps even pivoting into more of your relationship dynamic. So obviously you've talked about like your significant other, you've talked about how they have a successful career and demanding. So what does that look like for you? Because you have to operate as the support system for that.
This is a big one. So, kind of what I said, know your responsibilities. But when the other one is super busy and unable to fulfill some of those things, you might have to kick it up a notch. You might have to put the kids to bed myself if he's still working late nights. In some ways, it's almost like an honor to feel that like I can take on the backbone of my family or our responsibilities when my husband is fulfilling like his responsibilities at work. It gives me a moment to shine to say, let me help you. How can I help you? How can I step in, ease some of your stress, some of your responsibilities at home, or giving him a chance to just feel like when he's done working, like, wow, she stepped up for me. She went in, she knocked that out. She did it for me. I hope he feels that way. But I know he does. It's that thing of marriage. Like when one is completing something else, you got to pick up the rest of the slack.
No, I think that's great. I mean, what's also so great is as a sister, you always want to see your sister be treated well. And it's easy to see that you're treated well. But then it's also really cool to see in reverse how well you treat your spouse as well. And that's something where even like as a support system, it's like I've seen you grow so much in being a support system. And the truth be told, if you're in a relationship with somebody, that relationship is a direct reflection back to you. That's another thing I heard from an entrepreneur, where it's like you can tell how much someone loves or respects themselves based on the spouse that they choose. I look at you and I look at the dynamic of just your relationship, and it's like there's so much there. Like, and even watching you grow into being a support system where it's like it didn't happen overnight. It's also one of those things like vice versa. When you've gone out to do your stay at home and feed, there's been support for you. Just like when it's like, oh, this is a demanding project, it's going to look like X, Y, and Z. You've been there to order the pizza.
And don't get me wrong, there's definitely moments where I'm fried. He's
Absolutely.
fried, and I can't take on his load to help him because I'm exhausted. I can't do anymore. You do what you can, and you recognize in those like moments where it's like, you're going to get past it
Absolutely.
because everything's a season.
Oh, yeah. It's life, and you roll with the punches and you clean up messes as you go.
Yeah.
So, and one of the other things cool, obviously, we've talked about you being a mother, but even entering motherhood and just the dynamic and the relationships of those things, what would you say has either been like the most rewarding or the hardest transition within that time?
I know the exact answer for that. My patience. Nothing will try your patience like a child. I love my children, but they can be relentless. They all kids,
They're children.
they're children. Exactly. That was the biggest thing I've grown in is patience, especially when like 3 or 4 of them are calling at the same time and you're like, but I'm trying to make dinner. You got to learn to like kind of like train your mind. They're going to be okay. They can wait a minute.
Absolutely.
I'm cooking over here. This is boiling over. It's just patience.
Okay, so within relationships, we've talked about your relationship with your husband. We've talked about the dynamic of motherhood. And so bringing it back to the dynamic of our relationship and how we have a major age gap. But I would ask from your perspective, what has been an unexpected like pro of our age difference, and what was maybe like a con that you always thought was like, like I wish we didn't have as big of an age gap or something like that?
Immediately, the con would be that my kids could have cousins in the same age, but it works out. They get friends at school and stuff. The pros of our relationship, I actually do know the answer. I thought it would take longer to get to, but I think you keep me young. There's times where I'll say, real quick, I'm going out. How does this look? Girl, what are you wearing? Do not do that. I'm like, okay, I don't know what's trendy anymore. And then there's times where just your perspective and your intellect and just the way your brain thinks. I mean, you're creative and you're just authentic and real and just, people and she knows a lot of things about a lot of interesting things. And when you give that, when you share that, it transforms my mind. It transforms my thinking, puts a new perspective on my logic. And so I love that. I love that about you.
Well, thank you. I'm never going to look down at compliments. But I would say from my perspective, I mean, there was times with growing up being the youngest and with you and our brother being much older. I mean, gosh, you guys were both gone by the time I was 16. So it's like in a lot of ways, from the time I was like 16 to like graduating high school, it's like I felt like I was an only child because you guys weren't around. But then it was always so weird because they would have these stories and these memories of vacations I wasn't a part of. Our dad will say all the times, like, hey, do you remember going to that basketball game? I go, I wasn't alive. Thank you. Thank you. And then they talk about these vacations to Myrtle Beach. I'm like, wasn't alive. Thank you. Thank you. But no, but
Hey, it was out of my hands.
it's true. It was. But sometimes, like, I do wonder, I'm like, oh, I wonder what life would have been like if we were closer in age. But also, my favorite thing is our age difference because it's a different perspective. Like, even like, I think about being, I think it was like 16. And I remember there was like a point in time, like, oh, I like this guy. Oh, is there going to be something more? And I remember that was when you were dating your now husband. And you looked at me and we're sharing a room. So we're having this heart to heart unintentionally. And so she's having a heart to heart with me and she goes, make sure whoever you end up with loves you as much as my boyfriend, which is her husband, loves me or whatever. And I remember thinking that and I remember being like, wow, like it was just a perspective change because, you know, when you're young, sometimes you just want to get things out of the way. Like, let's just get past that and move forward. And then now, like being an adult, and I look back on that and it's like, it rings through my head every once in a while where I'm like, yeah, you want to make sure you find someone that loves you. So now that we've both lived through our major age gap relationship and we're not dying, so we're going to continue to live through it. But do you have any advice to like say like there's a 26-year-old sister out there and it's like I have this annoying little punky 16-year-old sister. What kind of advice would you give her?
At this age, being 30, I would say my advice now would be you can like mold them into the person they're going to be. Did that take you
You're
by
going to
surprise?
mold?
No, but I'm saying if
I'm teasing.
there were moments where you're like, I'm gonna like leave impacting results on you by what I say, how I treat you, how I make you feel. I'm gonna show you like how you should be to your other siblings. You know, like
Right, right.
I'm just saying, like being the oldest, especially like you set kind of the tone almost in a way.
Absolutely.
I would say to any older sibling, just love on them. They want to be with you or like you, and what you do, they're watching everything, especially at a really big age gap. They're watching everything. There were times where I will say this, you did actually ask me this, and I think maybe now I'm seeing the result of it. Did I feel shameful for calling off that previous engagement? I felt shameful that I stayed in a relationship I knew was wrong or unhealthy and dangerous and exposing you to it and being that example, like that this is appropriate for how you should be treated in a relationship. That would be the shame that you mentioned, maybe that I didn't really think about. But in the time, I'm focusing on me. But going back now, being older, setting a good example for you.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's also one of those things to give you space where it's like you did the best you knew how to do.
Yeah.
It's your first time being a big sister. But I will say one of the benefits about being 10 years younger is to get to look at you and our brother and just seeing all the things that you've done and seeing like all the things that like I like that you've done or
That you do different.
yeah, and getting to do it different. Because in a lot of ways, I haven't had to, if you want to call it a mistake, or I haven't necessarily gone down the pathways that you guys necessarily did, but just getting to kind of glean your wisdom. So that's been really cool.
I have to say, because I feel like this would be a perfect spot to insert it. She has motivated me and inspired me more since she started this podcast than she even realizes. I mean, I still have dreams. I want to write a book one day, maybe, or do some things. And I'm always saying later, later, later. This girl quit her job, saved her money, dedicated her focus, time, and energy to giving it all she got. Here's where another question you asked me. What's the most difficult thing in your life? For me, like, there's things I want to do that I don't know how to do it. I'd have to research it and figure it out and Google, basically. And I don't have the time. I don't have the energy. I don't care. I don't want to do it. It's too hard. It's too confusing. This girl dove in head first to doing this podcast, how she knows how to do lighting, how she knows how to do filming and all this stuff, cameras. It's a lot of things that you don't realize behind the scenes that goes into all this. And you don't get enough credit for, you don't get enough acknowledgement for. So I would say she's motivated me and inspired me to stop being lazy because if I want to do the things I say I want to do, I got to get in the dirt, the weedy parts that aren't fun before I get to the part that I enjoy and I appreciate. So you've been an inspiration into that many times.
Well, thank you. That
You're
is so
welcome.
kind. So are you finally looking up to me?
Ooh. right
I am a
now.
little taller than you.
Yes, you have been
I'm
for
like a half inch taller.
quite some time. Yes. I
So
feel most of the world is taller than me, though. So
same. Anyways, but no, thank you. I really
you're welcome.
appreciate that. That's so
Mm.
sweet. All right. So to wrap up on the serious questions, because we've talked about life, career, relationships, and now we're on dreams. So you once said, and by once, I mean at the top of this episode, that your 20s were your lost years. So how did you reclaim them in your 30s, or how are you still reclaiming them?
I'd say it is realizing those things that like you're so passionate about, like, oh, I want to do this. I want to do this. In your 30s, they're not that exciting anymore.
Understandable.
Skydiving, I was like, I have to do that. And now I'm like, if I never do that, I think I'll be okay. But no, I would say maybe in your 30s, you still are like finding that spouse and maybe you are getting that career. So maybe like those dreams and things are happening now in your 30s. So you can like reclaim the 20s by getting those things completed.
Absolutely. I think the coolest thing too is even like getting married. It's like people say all the time, who you married at 26 isn't who you're married to now, however many years later. So it's almost like every few years you get a new spouse.
Ooh, yes. Yeah, I would definitely agree that me and my husband are not the same people.
And for the better. There's been a lot of great growth.
Oh, absolutely. Your motives, your responsibility, it all changes. It all changes. So I would say enjoy your 20s because at 30, it changes again. And that, again, that was my opening thing. Everything's going to change.
So we've had a great heart to heart and we've unraveled so many things and so great. But now moving into my favorite part, I'm going to ask you some fun questions and hot takes.
Okay.
So, what is your favorite movie or TV show?
I don't watch a lot of TV nowadays.
Yeah, I know. You asked me for movie recommendations. We have polar opposite recommendations. I'm finally got to the point I'm like, you shouldn't even ask me anymore.
Yeah, her list was like weird things that I would never watch.
Just cinematic, no big deal.
Yeah, I would say growing up, my favorite movie was Die Hard. I loved thrillers. Yeah.
That's a shock. Okay.
What? I love thrillers. Then getting older, oh my gosh, my best friend's wedding.
That's the one I thought she was going to go with.
Yes. My favorite line in the whole movie is you're chasing him, he's chasing her, but who's chasing you? That always just resonated with me in some weird way.
I mean, who does that not resonate with?
I know. I just love the whole craziness in the movie. I don't know. It just was one of my favorite movies.
And Julia Roberts is in it, so.
Yeah.
Did you have a favorite TV show?
Okay, so my favorite TV show for a while was Friends.
Yeah.
Years ago, it was Grey's Anatomy. Many years ago, like when it was the first several episodes. I think I stopped in like season 10 or I don't remember.
One's character started like dying and leaving, and I also was the one that got her onto Grey's Anatomy, but yes.
That was the one show that was a good recommendation from Christina.
Wow. This is one of my favorite questions to ask people. So, what fictional character best resonates with like you as an individual?
From like a TV show or something?
TV show, movie, like if you had to step into their shoes, which character
Oh my
would it
gosh.
be?
I can tell you immediately. I am Monica from Friends. I know it's my favorite, like I said, it was my favorite TV show. I haven't watched it in forever, but like I'm a clean freak. I am like OCD, organized freak, like whatever. The only thing that I do not have in common with her is I can't cook. I don't know how to cook
Oh, right.
anything. I could barely boil water. No,
That's not true. She's added like one or two things to her repertoire.
yeah. Easy macaroni and cheese. No, just kidding.
She called me one day and she's like, "How do you cook chicken?"
Edit that out. I didn't know how to cook chicken.
So this next question I think is a good one.
I'll be the judge.
I want to make sure I remember it. So, if you had to have one of your kids' obsessions, what would you pick? So the options are dinosaurs, lawnmowers, playing in the toilet, or some type of Barbie or Polly Pocket.
Oh man. Well, that's easy. I would definitely pick the lawnmowers because I can't do the dinosaur thing. Those names, Balapteroptus, Dino, blah, 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 blah. You should hear some of these names. They're crazy that my son can pronounce with like outflaw. Yeah, no, I would be into the lawn mowing. I like the patterns you can get in the grass, the fresh air, the smell of the cut grass. Like,
I never knew how many lawnmowers there was until her son starts naming all the lawnmowers, and you're like, I didn't know that was a hobby.
and he's only 4 and he knows all that.
It's wild.
Yeah.
And the other one's young that plays in the toilet, so it's not like he's
Yeah,
13.
He's 2. Yeah, for the record, he's 2.
Now, this next question is going to be controversial. So, are you ready?
Uh-oh.
I believe I stand by this. I believe everyone believes in at least one conspiracy theory. And I think the one that you believe in shows a lot about your individual personality. So you get to have one conspiracy theory that you believe in. What are you picking? One.
Because I got a lot. Continuity of government, Q,
Let's just.
big pharma, mammograms, Project Bluebeam.
I'm not trying to be one of those QAnon people.
Oh my goodness. They're not QAnons. Okay. So I would say.
Guys, she's cute.
That's hilarious. Okay. So I would say I get to pick one.
Yes.
All right. Can I say the deep state? The deep state will try to convince us there's like a second coming with some like hologramic graphic design in the sky.
That's a conspiracy theory?
Yeah.
Oh, you want to know mine?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm torn between two, but I'm going to go with this one. The Denver airport.
Oh, yeah.
I think there's something going on down there. If you look at any of the photos in the airport, creepy.
Yes. There's been a lot of stuff, actually, newer stuff coming out about that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I stand by that. I think the reason why everyone wants to believe in conspiracy theories so much, and I'm going to crack the case right here, Scooby-Doo. Scooby-Doo has bred us to want to believe in conspiracy theories.
Never saw Scooby-Doo. Let me say that closer. Never saw it. I couldn't stand the show.
How could you not like Scooby-Doo?
I don't know.
Even the cartoon version?
Is there another version?
There's live
movies.
action.
They do make movies.
No, there's cartoon and live action because Freddie Prinze Jr. was Sarah Gellar.
I don't know.
Whoever's married to Freddie Prinze Jr., that's Sarah. I can't remember her last name,
Okay.
but she was in like Buffy the Vampire Slayer or something.
Never saw them.
Okay, well, I heard someone have a TikTok that goes, it takes more faith to believe that our government has been 100% honest with us than to believe one conspiracy theory. And anytime I say that to someone, they're always like, okay, in that case, I believe this conspiracy theory.
Yeah, I think people have them. They're just afraid to admit them.
Right.
And there's also a comedian who went like viral. He's hilarious for saying, he said something like, so you're telling me the government has batted 100 out of 100, like, or however, I don't even know baseball. However the phrase goes, he's like, you're telling me that they've never, ever lied to us? You don't have one conspiracy. And oh my gosh, it's hilarious.
I think that was the guy I had heard because it was the batting 100. And I'm like, yes.
Yes.
All right. Do you have any final thoughts, Ashley?
I'd say it was an honor to be on the show. It is kind of scary being behind a camera. But
you're in front of a camera.
Oh, yeah. You know what I mean. And I would say thank you for letting me share my heart and things that matter to me and taking this time and for pursuing this dream of yours to giving me this opportunity.
Well, thank you so much, Ashley, for coming on. This was a pleasure. You know, it's so fun because we have so many great heart-to-hearts as it is because you're my sister. But it was so exciting to sit down and have a conversation and to think this is something that we'll forever have on the book. So also really special.
Yeah.
So, and if you guys liked this episode, please give this a big thumbs up. If you enjoyed listening to Ashley, drop a comment down below saying we want more Ashley because we could potentially bring her back if she's willing. But if you enjoyed this episode or the podcast show in general, please give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcast and Spotify. Make sure you are subscribed to us at Let's Unravel Pod on YouTube, and you can connect with us more on TikTok, Instagram, and our Facebook page at Let's Unravel Pod. Now, since we've gotten through all of that, Ashley, what is your hot take on should people be decorating for Christmas October 31st?
Absolutely. I start taking down my fall decorations like 2 days before Halloween. And then Halloween night, I go and take out the Christmas totes. And we go full blown Christmas at our house. Like every inch is covered with Christmas.
Listen, if Hallmark can do Christmas in July, Ashley can do Christmas in October.
It just brings the cheer.
It's true. I have to say, I do. If you decorate early, you don't have to think about it. It's stress-free, so I'm here for it. But let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you're listening on Spotify, make sure you're casting your vote in the poll. So, well, that's all. And I will talk to you guys next week with another new episode. And we have new episodes every single Thursday. So see you then. Bye.